Hi there. So today I'm going to describe the basics of a RezMela application. And the example I've picked is this graphics editor app. It's a fairly simple app that I thought I would use to introduce the main features. This environment is a simple OpenSim environment, so we are in an OpenSim region. You can see that this is my avatar. We are in a 3D world, and this is the example RezMela application. I'm going to point to the different buttons and what their functions are, and keep the number of the amount of information to a minimal, because this is really an introductory video. The first thing you would need to do when accessing this application is that you need to get a HUD. Okay, and in order to get a HUD, you'll have to click on the little cube on this 3D application, and that little cube, let me do this. So I'm going to remove my current HUD here. Don't need that. Let's say I just walk towards the 3D application and I need to pick a HUD, and I would click on this little button here, this little cube, and that would give me my HUD. In fact, I get a message that says you now have the RezMela HUD. And that's quite an important HUD, because that's the interface you would be using in order to interact with the application. The next thing I would point at is the login button. Okay, so this on and off switch is actually a login button. All right, so when I click on it, I'm going to log into this application, and you will see the HUD appear. Let's look at this stack of objects here on the left of the app, and the list of objects that you see on this stack actually are referred to various categories of objects that this app contains. Okay, so let's log in. I didn't talk too much about the other buttons, okay, because it's not too important from a user perspective. So let me log into the application here. All right, and what you would see in your top left corner, a HUD appear, and on the top right, if you're using the HUD for the first time, you would see a message from your viewer that would probably say, RezMela HUD uses texture memory, and you can safely ignore this message because it doesn't really impact performance of this application. So the next thing that I want to do is maybe create something so that you get to see how to use it. So I'm going to click on the create button. And what happens is that the system would actually go through the library of objects that's contained in this stack, and then display all the various categories that you have access to. All right. So we see that we have a layout tools category. We see different types of objects that you can create. You have images, text, internet objects, and Flora items, rooms and things like that. Shapes and arrows, which we would expect from a graphics editor. As I said, my main purpose here was to illustrate the concepts, and so that very quickly you get a sense of what we are doing. The first category I'll click on is called the layout tools. We'll have a clip in the future that would talk about layouts in particular, because it's there are much more there that meets the eye, and we'll talk about that a different time, but for now let's pick a simple grid, like let's say an 8-meter grid, and I'm going to place it on the ground. And you might have noticed that I clicked on an object with a blue circle and with a few photo triangles around that circle. That was the starting point. Okay, you need to tell the system where you want to place something, and that's just a starting point, and we place a grid. And people creating in virtual environments like OpenSim would be familiar with the ideas of grids and placing objects on grids, etc., when you're actually building a 3D scene. So here, we have a grid that has snap to grid functionality. So what I mean by this is, say you want to place an object. Let me go back to the menu here and pick a simple object. Let's say we are going to pick a seat so that you get to see. Let me pick this chair. It looks really nice. So I'm going to place it at some specific points, and you can see how accurately the objects are positioned. Okay, so let me take a top view. You can see these objects have been placed like this, and you can select the objects by left clicking and holding, and when you left click and hold, it's going to light up. So it functions pretty much like in a fairly intuitive way. And now I can reorient them any way I want. Okay, so let's say this is how I would want to place them. Alright, so now you know that you can place a grid and place objects on it. You can also have place the grids themselves. So I'm going to let us say I'm going to put a vertical grid. So I do this by selecting a grid that would allow me to place one vertically here, and then I'm going to place like another grid on top. So now what I have is I have like a vertical grid. Okay, and I can, if I want, place let us say a few drawings on it. So let me try placing a circle here, and you can see the snap to grid feature working here as well. So if I have this row of circles, very placed in a very easy way. I don't need to really fight things. Okay. So that is just to illustrate in the same way you can actually select individual objects and resize or rotate and do pretty much what you want. You can clone objects and place them elsewhere, etc. And then you can actually save the scene. So this would be like a scene. And after you create a given scene, you can log out. So I click on the button again. Sorry about the blue on the blue there. I mean, that's kind of interesting. But when you log out, you would be able to hide the layout objects. Okay. and you have so the same principle that you would use to create drawings on a 2D surface and place objects or images and text. Let me place a text so that I can illustrate that. Let's say you want to place a text object and say hello world, for example. And you will be, you'll do it in the same way as you placed 3D objects. Okay, so in this environment, it really does not matter how you are placing content, and it all happens very easily. So if I were, for example, to add like a few pine trees around, I would use the same principle, and here the base of the tree is not at the center of the tree. That's why it looks a little bit shifted, so from the actual point that's been detected, which is exactly at the corner at the intersection point of these two black lines. Alright, so you have you can place your trees and things like that and object on a grid. Of course, if you are building a very large environment, you just need a bigger grid. You can even place mountains and things like that. Or you can have, your objects placed on a 2D screen. And when you are done, you can save this setup, and I would call it, let's say, tutorial 1, and save it. And that's going to save the whole scene. So what is a scene? A scene is a group of objects that's been deployed, and you're saving, information about that scene. Alright, so let's clear this. Sorry, I need to clear this first. So I'm now clearing the scene. So there is going to be nothing left in a few moments. And I'm going to try to load it again. And when I click on load, I have like a list of files that was previously created. So this is tutorial 1. I'm going to load it, and here you have, you have your scene, and you have your text, etc. And when you sign out, all the layout objects would disappear, and you can see that, all the various control points on these various objects disappear as well. Okay, so I think what I mean by control points is basically this. When you log in, you'll see that, the user interfaces that allow you to interact with the individual objects, they appear. So for example, for a text object, you can see the 3 bars over here, and if you left click, you have a dialog box that pops up that allows you to change various properties about this object, the color, the text, etc. But let's stop here for today, because I think it's getting a bit too long for a very simple introduction. But it pretty much covers the main areas of a RezMela app. Okay, so let me sign off, and I will see you in the next clip. So in summary, what I wanted to do here is to show you an example RezMela app, to show you the login button, how to get the HUD, how to save a scene, and how to load a scene. Very simple steps. Alright. So thanks for your attention. I'll see you next time.